Thank you for staying. Seriously, every time I do one of these Locknote things, and it's like you have you can go to the pub, you can go or you can stay and watch me. I honestly, every time, believe that no one's going to come. So let's talk about that, shall we? This started out, it was meant to be just like funny and jokes and everything, and it may possibly at points get a little bit real, and I apologize in advance. But you know, this is my Oscar talk. So yes, confession number 0, I can't spell imposter. Because it could be with an O or it could be with an E. I'm not sure. Is it an O? Is it an E? The internet's no help because you can find equal amounts of both of them. And also I can't use PowerPoint. I'm sure there's some much better way in PowerPoint of doing that switching between an E and an O, but I just created a whole bunch of slides and just switched between them. And because I can't use PowerPoint, and I watch some of my friends' talks, like Dylan Beatty does these talks, and he does the most amazing things with like PowerPoint and After Effects and all this sort of stuff. And I use one of the built-in themes because I have no design sensibilities or color awareness or any of that sort of stuff, so I think this is Slate. And yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. At least I don't do that. But yes, I wanted to talk about this. I was writing another talk, and then December happened, and there's a speaker signal chat, the speakerati, the secret cabal of speakers that stop anybody else getting into NDC conferences. It's real. Yeah, we have a secret signal chat, but. Yes, we now have stickers for Speakerati, which you can only get if you're in Speakerati, and if you're not in Speakerati, it's because we don't like you. It's not, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be in it. But no, seriously, it's painful. This is raw bits. Ow. Anyway, so Speakerati, Advent of Code happens, and everybody starts doing Advent of Code, and I start doing Advent of Code, and doing it in a language that you know seems a little bit easy. And so this last one I decided I was going to do in Zig. And if anyone hasn't used Zig, by the way, it's like Rust, but if Rust is an alternative to C++, then Zig is an alternative to C, and it's a really, really nice alternative to C, and I was very much enjoying it. But then day 8 happened, and I can't remember exactly what the problem on day 8 was. And I'd happily done days 1 to 7. I'd done them in Zig, and I was enjoying it, and it was really good language, and I was kind of learning it and everything. We got to day 8, and it was kind of like, oh, now the elves need to move stuff around the place and make sure that they're evenly distributed and whatever else. And I was just staring at it going, bleh? And then everybody in the speaker chat was just like, oh, day 8, super easy. It's just Dijkstra's algorithm. I had to look up how to spell Dijkstra for this slide. I've heard of him. Dijkstra is the guy who said, go to considered harmful. And a bunch of other stuff, like teaching programmers basic damages their brains is probably my favorite. But yeah, I don't know what Dijkstra's algorithm is. It's something, is it like vaguely to do with the traveling salesman or something? I don't know. I just absolutely, and so I stopped. I stopped on day 7 of Advent of Code because I decided that the rest of it was just going to be for clever people. Because I went off and I looked up Dijkstra's algorithm, and this is the Wikipedia entry. This is the summary paragraph. It uses a min prior. Here are the things in this paragraph that I also don't understand. I don't know what asymptotically means. I don't know what a directed graph is. My knowledge of mathematics, a graph is like line go up. unless you're NVIDIA, in which case line go down. There are still jokes. But yes, a Fibonacci heap priority queue. I know what those 4 words individually mean, but the meanings I know for those 4 words, you can't put them together in that order. What the hell is a Fibonacci heap priority queue? And as soon as the Greek letters turn up, I can pronounce the Greek letters because my eldest actually did ancient Greek GCSE and came to me one day and went, "Dad, test me on my pronunciation," and handed me a whole sheet of paper just full of squiggles. And I went, "I don't know what these squiggles are." And so they taught me the Greek alphabet. And so, and it's, people go, "Oh, it's quite easy." No, the thing that looks like an S is pronounced O, and the thing that looks like an O is pronounced th. So it's not, but yes. Contraction high, directed acyclic gas. I don't know what any of this sort of stuff means because I never learned computers. So here are my qualifications, okay? This is the British education system, 1980s. I got 5 GCSEs. I got an A in French because French is easy. It's just memorizing more words, and I'm quite good at that. I think I got a B in English, so I did better in a foreign language than I did in my own. I got a B in maths. I got a B in physics. I got a C in sociology. I didn't take any other GCSEs because I changed schools several times. I had a fucked up childhood. I went through 4 different family situations, and I tended to run away from home, and I didn't go back. And I did that the last summer holidays just before, what do they call it, year 11 now? And I ended up back with with one of the families, and they said I couldn't stay, so I missed the first term of year 11. And so then I turned up, and I had 2 terms to go. One term was the mocks, the next term, they were doing completely different syllabuses and all this sort of stuff. So it ended up that I only took 5 GCSEs. And, but you think, that's okay, I can fix that. No, I didn't actually stay at school to do A-levels because by this point I was in social services care, and they had a budget cut and they couldn't afford to keep kids in care until 18. There's currently a sort of movement to try and get them to keep kids in care until 21 so that they can go to university. But at the time, they just went, "Hey, you're on your own, go get a job." And there was YTS, the Youth Training Scheme, which was brilliant if you wanted to be a plumber or a builder or, proper jobs where people use their hands. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be a programmer. Obviously, I don't have a degree. I have no degrees at all. The reason I'm standing slightly like this, sort of lopsided, is because I have a huge fucking chip on this shoulder. So yes, hands up if you do have a degree. Don't worry, I won't hate you. Hands up if that degree is in computer science. Okay, so, but quite a lot of people, no, that's good. I feel better. Thank you for that. Yes, no, my degree came from the University of Life, the School of Hard Knocks. It didn't, this is fake. You can get that online. But yes, and so this means that I never learned all the things that you learn in computer science in GCSE and A-level, and then you go and do it at university. So big O notation. I vaguely, so I know what this one means, O1. That means it takes 1 operation to do whatever it is. But I'm still slightly confused because people say that like hash table lookups are O1, but I know that there's more than 1 step involved because you get the hash code and then you modulo something and that gives you a bucket and then you look through the bucket. So I don't see how that's 1 operation. That doesn't make sense to me. ON makes perfect sense. That's 1 operation for every item in the list. ON squared, that's bad because, if you've got 100 items in the list, that's 10,000 operations. If you've got 1,000 items in the list, that's 1,000,000 operations. So I know that's bad. This one, I don't know what situation this would arise from. It's like 2 to the power of n, but I am aware that if you have 64 items in the list, then that's more operations than there are grains of rice in China, because of that thing about the guy who said put 1 on the first square and 2 on the second square and 4 on the third square, and then got executed once the emperor figured out how much rice that was. ON exclamation mark, or ON. No, it's all right. I do now know that that's n factorial, and so, but I don't, is that worse than 2 to the n? I have no idea. And then there's this one. So I know that log is short for logarithm. I'm going to be completely brutally honest at this point. I don't know what logarithm means. Somebody can come and explain it to me afterwards if you feel bad for me. It's when you misspell algorithm. There you go. Thank you, Eli. Now I know. And that will come up in my next job interview. Data structures. Okay, you learn all about data structures when you do computer science. And so I understand arrays. Zig has arrays, and C had arrays, and I learned C. And an array is just, you kind of go, okay, so each item is 4 bytes, and so every time you want to go to the next one, you add 4 to the pointer, and you just keep going, and that's an array. That's nice and simple. And then you have a linked list, which is where each item has the data and also a pointer to the next item in the list, and this is how Lisp worked. With the car and CUDA and the 36-bit register on the IBM 704. I only know that because I wrote a talk about the history of programming languages. Stack, so you push things onto a stack and you pop things off the stack, and so it's kind of like first in, last out data structure. I can implement these in C# or Zig or whatever. Queue, which is like first in, first out, so you put it on one end. I'm not 100% sure how to implement that in code, but that's okay. Then there's a hash table. Like I say, I know it's got something to do with computing a hash code for each item, moduloing it, and then having buckets and putting things in different buckets, and that speeds up finding stuff in the list. That's fine. Tree, this is where it goes. I just know. So there's binary trees and this kind of tree and that ternary trees and quaternary trees and all this sort of stuff. Then there's a heap, which I vaguely, when I was Googling stuff, it's a kind of tree. And so, yeah, there's that. And then there's a graph. And as mentioned earlier, I don't know what that means. I directed acyclic graph or graph databases like Neo4j. Neo4j? Yes, that's the one. Seriously, I'm having to look at my friends in the front row and go, did I say that right? All I know about these data structures, and actually as a .NET developer, all I need to know about these data structures is that the stack is where you have value types, and the heap is where you have reference types, and that will get you through 90% of .NET job interviews. Which is lucky for me. Although it's got more complicated now because the very, very clever interviewing people who are much cleverer than you will now go, ah, yes, but which heap? So there's the heap, there's the large object heap where objects larger than 85,000 bytes go. There's now also the pinned object heap, where you put an object if you're going to pin it, and so it doesn't move in memory, so you can pass it to interop stuff and all this kind of thing. And now we also have a frozen object heap for objects that you initialize at program startup that are never going to change and never going to be disposed. And so it's a place where you can put stuff that's just going to stay that way forever. And then there's the sorting algorithms. So insertion sort, that's kind of you go through the list and you go, okay, I've got this thing, I'm going to go and look for the first number that it's less than, and then I'm going to insert it into there and move all the others, shuffle them all down, which is inefficient. Selection sort, no, not sure. Bubble sort, I swear to God, yesterday I knew what this was. Today it's gone. This is the problem. If the knowledge doesn't go in before you're 21, it's never going in. Your brain literally stops being able to learn at the age of 21. Hello, master's degrees and PhDs and anyone in research. There's merge sort, which merge sort is something to do with, like, you break the lists up into half here and half there, and then you sort them, and then you merge them back together again. That sounds quite straightforward. And then Quicksort, of course, which is where you choose a random pivot, and then you sort that one, and you sort that one. And so I don't know why it's not merge sort for a start. I don't understand how it works. I absolutely 100% cannot implement Quicksort on a whiteboard, which has just put all the high-paying jobs completely out of reach. I am never going to work at Google because, I mean, never mind Quicksort. I don't even need Quicksort. This is how I implement sort, and list.sort in the .NET framework will choose the sorting algorithm based on how many items you've got in the list. So I don't need to implement Quicksort. I also have no idea how many balls would fit in this room, which apparently is very, very important for working at FANG companies. She looks like she's having fun though, so that's nice. The sort of title for this is Beautiful Woman in a Ball Pit or something, but yes, it thought that the key word was beautiful. So value judgment about this lady from whoever took this photograph and put it on Unsplash. So given that I know nothing about computers and I'd never learned computers, how did I even get into this position? I was out of school. I worked in a kitchen for a while as a kitchen porter, and then I got a job in a computer shop, and I was supposed to just be like hoovering and dusting and selling people computers, but people would come back in and they would say, I took my computer home and I tried to run Doom on it and it wouldn't run. It said it didn't have enough memory, and so I would make them a floppy disk with an autoexec.bat that enabled the EMM386 extended memory thing and then send them away. I got sacked for doing that. I was spending too much time supporting customers who had already given us all the money they were going to give us, because obviously no one was ever going to invent a 486. And so they went, look, you should go and get a job as a programmer. And I was kind of like, I don't know how to get a job as a programmer. But then there was an advert in the local paper down in Hastings, the Hastings Observer, and it went, do you want to be a programmer? Come work for us, we'll train you for 3 months and then send you out to inflict untold damage on the industry. And as a freelance contractor for 3 years. And so I kind of answered this advert, and they said, yeah, come in for an interview. And so I turned up, still 16 at this point, and I did the interview. The one question that I remember is, what's the difference between a for loop and a while loop, which was difficult. If that's what they were using to weed people out, then fine. I got that answer right, and then the guy who was interviewing me, who owned the company, said, so, problem, when we put that advert, the people who answer that advert are the university graduates. They're 21 years old, and so we can train them. We can teach them Infomix, ESQLC, or 4GL, and databases, and all this sort of stuff. We can send them out. You're 16. We can't send you out. No one's going to hire a 16-year-old. And I was kind of like, oh, but he went, what we can do is we can give you a job, just you're in charge of making sure that the printer has toner. You can make sure, you can make RS-232 cables, because this was pre-proper networks where WISE terminals connected to a Tandem 286 with 23-pin RS-232 cables. You can't see it anymore, but I have a scar under one of my fingernails from a blob of solder. Ouch. And he went, you can do that, and then when you're not doing that, you can use one of the terminals, and you can use all the books, and you can talk to the other people, and you can teach yourself coding as you go along. And then when you get to like 2021, we'll send you out. And I was kind of like, okay, that sounds like fun. And I was getting paid 80 quid a week to do that. And then there was a bit of a downturn in the market, and they said, we can't pay you, but you can keep coming in if you want. And I was kind of like, yeah, all right. because I was having fun and I liked the people there and they let me play with computers all day long. So I got a job in a chip shop, like 6 doors down the road, in the morning, peeling potatoes for a fish and chip shop, which involves a big rumbling machine, and you tip potatoes into it, and then they come out, and you have to cut the extra bits of eyes out and everything else, and then put it in water filled with dry white, which is basically bleach. So enjoy your chips. And then I would do that for like a couple of hours in the morning, and then they would open the chip shop and they would give me a portion of chips, nice big portion of chips, salt and vinegar, and I would take it to work and I would sit at my desk and I would eat my chips. And I had also a lovely aunt who paid my rent for me during this time. My rent, by the way, this was 1989, 1990, 30 quid a week. Yeah. I mean, it was in Hastings. I think it's gone up to 40 now. But yes, and the smell of the fish and of the chips and the salt and vinegar drove them crazy, and they went, okay. I think I was like nearly 17, nearly 18 by this point, and they went, we just can't continue like this. We're just going to lie on your CV, and we're going to change your date of birth so that you're 21. And so I went out and I lied for 4 years and said I was 21. I had 4 22nd birthday parties. And the last one really hurt because it should have been my 21st birthday party. And so I never had a 21st birthday party. Aww. But yeah, that's how I got in. The thing that was really fun was I went off and I did that. And then when I was kind of like 22, and could sort of go out and do freelance contracting without lying to all these people, they went, hey, do you want to come back in-house and do research and development, but also train the incoming new batches of trainees? And I went, yeah, okay, that sounds like fun, and I can live in one place and hang out with my mates and do stuff. The people who were turning up as the new trainees were people that I'd been at school with, who had gone off and done A-levels and then gone to university and learned all the things, and then they came back, and there was me on £45,000 a year, by the way, which is quite a lot of money then, especially when you don't have anything particular to spend it on, so it all went on drugs. And they were kind of like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm going to teach you actual programming, and then we're going to make some money out of you. The other thing, I couldn't work out anywhere else to put this, but it was coming to the point, so this is like 93, 94, and Windows was starting to be a thing. Netware networks and this sort of stuff was starting to happen. And so they said, right, we need you to work out the next thing that we're going to specialize in, because Infomix 4GL is going to die. And so we looked at Infomix New Era, which was terrible. And I found this, I looked at Visual Basic 4, but that basically couldn't do database connections and so forth. I found this thing called Gupta SQL Windows, which was object-oriented, and that was new to me. And they went, okay, learn object-oriented programming. And I was kind of like, okay, so you have objects, and the functions go inside the objects, and the objects have data in them. Huh? I don't get it. And I went, can you send me on a 2-day training course to learn about object-oriented programming? And I went and I turned up to the 2-day training course on object-oriented programming, and basically they took 2 days to go, yeah, no, that's it. Functionality and data together in this same notional thing. You know, there's inheritance and stuff, but yeah, it really wasn't that complicated. And this is, I think, where a lot of imposter syndrome actually comes from, is you look at something and you kind of go, that's not difficult, so I must be missing something. If I'm getting paid this much money to do this thing and it's not hard, I'm doing it wrong. I must be doing it wrong. There's something is wrong here. It's not. It's just we're overpaid. Nice problem to have. But yeah, so I don't know how to write code. I never learned how to write sort and all this sort of stuff. I just copy other people's code. And, you know, I've just done a 2-day workshop on highperformance.net, and everything I know about writing highperformance.net code I've learned from reading like the .NET runtime source code and ASP.NET Core source code and Kestrel and Mark Gravel's Redis client and various other things like that. And I kind of learn the patterns, and then I don't copy and paste. I don't literally just go to GitHub and find and then put it in there. I'm not fucking Copilot. But I just, this is the Owin extension thing, and from ASP.NET Core. So yeah, I just copy other people's code. The voice in my head tells me this on a regular basis, okay? What the voice in my head forgets is that the reason ASP.NET Core has a class called Owin extensions is that ASP.NET Core grew out of the open web interface for .NET, Owin, which I was on the working group for, and I helped design it. And this is the delegate of doom. This is famous sort of fourth iteration of Owin. I wrote this. I came up with this. This was nearly what we accepted until we just went, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to have interfaces, and we are going to say .NET 4 only so we can have tasks. Because this was how we did asynchronous without using tasks in .NET. And also how we worked around the fact that interfaces can't be shared between us, which they nearly did with .NET Core, and then they backed out of it, the cowards. But yeah, I wrote this, and it looks quite sort of, it's better here. When I wrote it, everything was like funk of this, of that, of action, of something, and it was like an 8-line delegate signature. And they, like I said, they did accept it, and then they went, yeah, no one's going to use this, it's too complicated. So yeah, I didn't make that slide, I did not miss that T out. I would never do that. It's about the only thing I can do is spell, except Dijkstra. So yeah, why are you all here? Seriously, you could be anywhere. Why are you listening to me? I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why I get emails asking me to come and speak at conferences. I don't know why people are prepared to pay for me to fly to Melbourne in April so that I can speak at the NDC in Melbourne on the other side of the world. Because who the hell am I? I have no qualifications. I just copy other people's code. I don't know anything at all. Don't even know what time it is. There we go. It's, yeah. I have a lot of speaker friends, and I watch my other speaker friends. I watch Dylan, I watch David, I watch Eli, I watch all my lovely speaker friends. And I watch them, and they've got these gorgeously prepared and rehearsed talks, okay? Some of them are scripted. Like Scott Hanselman, his talks are scripted. He learns them. They are word for word. You can watch a Scott Hanselman talk opposite ends of the year, and it is pretty much word for word. If you watch me do this talk tomorrow, it'll be completely different. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just put the slides together, and then I talk, okay? And it seems to work. And so, yeah, but yeah, I just, look, completely clueless. No idea what he's doing. Utter idiot. And I'm not just a tech imposter as well. It's not just here that I'm an imposter. It is everywhere. It is everywhere in my entire life. For example, you merely adopted imposter syndrome. I was born with I never learned to read. Sorry, that should be done with the Wayne's World. I never learned to read. Obviously, I did learn to read at some point. I actually can't remember. And quite a lot of people don't remember learning to read, or not being able to read. But most people you go to school and they give you a book and you learn to read. When I was 2 years old, I broke my leg. I say I. But anyway, I ended up in the back of an... Yeah, I'm sorry, that's... No, I shouldn't, right. Anyway, I ended up in the back of an ambulance, and this is my first memory. And it's one of those things where, because some things you're not sure whether it's a memory or not. I just triggered somebody, I'm sorry. Fuck. I'm really sorry. But yes, you're never sure whether it's an actual memory or it's just somebody told you something and then you've manufactured a memory around it. I was in the back of an ambulance. This is what ambulances looked like in the 1970s. And I could see out of the windows at the back of the ambulance, and then there was just a wall at the other end, sort of above my head, and I couldn't see a driver, and so obviously there was no driver, and so I worked out in my little 2-year-old head that ambulances must run on rails. And but yes, so I got taken to the hospital. My mother taught me to read when I was 2. Taught me from the Ladybird books. This is Ladybird 1A, play with us. This is Peter, this is Jane, this is Pat the dog. Hello Peter, hello Jane, hello Pat. Which is great, but then you turn up on your first day of school and they go, right, we're going to teach you to read. And they present you with Ladybird book 1A, and you go, I've read that. And they go, all right, 1B, read that. Which ones haven't you read? I've read all of them. And so then they call your parents in and they say, we're going to put him up a year. And which sounds great and the sort of thing that one might boast about and stuff. It's not great, because you've got all the kids who are the same age as you in the class where you belong, and then you get put up in. And the difference between 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds is really big. You know, some of those 5-year-olds are basically going to turn 6 on the 3rd of September. And so there I was an imposter. I was a too young child in the wrong class. And then they took me out of that school and sent me to a normal school. And so when I started, it'd be year 3. And it was a state school. State schools aren't allowed to put kids up. And so then I had to go back down. And I don't think I learned anything new for the next 4 years, because private schools push faster and harder and everything. So I was like a really weird kind of imposter there as well, because I was kind of like, well, I don't know why I'm here, because I know this stuff. And so I obviously shouldn't be here, and you should. Okay, can I get the entire room clear by the end? I'm never sure whether people are leaving because I'm in me, or because they've got to go and catch a train or something. So yeah, I'm not funny. Yeah, and we are actually starting to see that now. This is not funny at all. God, turn it around, come on. But no, I make people laugh, and I tell jokes, and they laugh, and yet still, in my head, I'm not funny, and they're laughing out of pity, because, you know, rooms full of strangers are known for their pity. This is a basic human trait. I know this because I actually did stand-up comedy for like 8 or 9 years, and I would play the late show at Jongleurs in front of the stag do's and the hen parties, and if you weren't funny, they would laugh anyway and pretend that they were in yeah. I played Up the Creek, Malcolm Hardy's club. If you weren't funny there, Malcolm and somebody else would literally come on and pick you up by the arms and carry you off. And that didn't happen to me, but I'm not sure how it didn't happen to me, because as I may have mentioned, I'm not funny. But I somehow managed to fool. I think what it is I learned how to say things that aren't funny, but in a way that makes them sound like they are funny. And so they kind of become jokes or something. Anyway, it worked. This is a review of me from the year 2000. Sharp Rendle, apparently. And yes. Also, I won a competition. I won the Times, Metro and Jongleurs New Act of the Year competition in 1999, beating 63 other comedians. But I'm still not funny, because I don't belong here, which is why I quit. Actually, it's not why I quit. I quit because doing corporate dinners and handing out prizes to the ICI salesman who sold the most paint was not why I got into comedy. You can probably guess why, as a 21, 22, 23-year-old, I got into comedy. I'm not going to say it out loud. Also, yeah, was anyone at the gig last night with the Line Breakers? Yeah. Obviously, I can't really play the bass. 2 years ago, I'd never picked one up in my life. This is, I mean, you know, that looks like I'm playing bass, but actually, Dylan feels sorry for me, and so he just mixes in a bass track and they turn my thing down. Although, yesterday, we did finally discover that that's not actually true, didn't we? If you will, sit down the front. You know, I mean, there was this point where it was just the bass and Heather, and yeah. But actually, true story, last week, so we had a week of, we called it band camp, and as many of the line breakers as could, we rented a nice big house down in Westgate-on-Sea on the North Kent coast. And we were all sitting around, we were doing a playthrough of the whole set list, and there was one point, when I started playing bass, I found it very difficult to isolate the bass line from the rest of the music, because all it's really doing is it's adding tonality to the drums. It's more of a rhythm instrument than a music instrument for the most part. But when you get it right, and you're getting it just on the beat, and it's going dum, 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 it just sounds so good. And I could isolate this, and I was kind of like, has he accidentally, honestly, swear to God, this was what went through my head, has he accidentally left the bass mixed in from the backing track? And I stopped, and it stopped, because it sounded too good, and so it couldn't be me. This, seriously. So then you kind of go, okay, I can play bass, but that's like being able to play the triangle. It's only got 4 strings. It's not like a guitar. I mean, okay, mine's got 5, but that's just so I don't have to drop tune it for 3 of the songs that we do in the line breakers, which slows everything down, and everyone has to sort of like talk for a minute while I go. Also, now I don't have to carry a tuning pedal. But no, I can play bass. Most people, there are people who have ADHD. ADHD is a completely real thing. It is a neurodivergent condition. It is a difference in brain structure and brain chemistry. It's to do with dopamine receptors. If you have poor dopamine receptors, as a result of, I don't know, not being hugged enough as a child or whatever, then your brain doesn't reward you in the correct way for doing the things that you should be doing, and you go looking for dopamine hits. And so when you're supposed to be writing a talk about imposter syndrome, instead, you go and play Stardew Valley, because it gives you a dopamine hit. So yes, ADHD is completely real. People out there do have ADHD. They have screening for it. This is the ADHD self-report scale. And so one of my kids had to be tested, and they came back from their interview with a psychiatrist and went, yes, I'm autistic and I have ADHD, and by the way, so do you, Dad. And so I went to my GP and went, apparently I'm probably broken and I need to find out exactly how, so I can get special dispensation to park backwards or something. And so they referred me to Psychiatry UK, and they send you this question, and there's also one for autism spectrum disorder. And so I filled this in. If you put your ticks in those grey squares, then that strongly suggests you have ADHD. There are 18 questions. I put my ticks in the grey squares on 16 of them. But that's just because I obviously knew what the answer was supposed to be, and I was choosing the correct answer, not because I actually have ADHD. As previously mentioned, I don't have ADHD, I'm just stupid and lazy. You might have ADHD, lots of people do have ADHD, not me, I am just stupid and lazy. I also don't have depression. I am on various kinds of medication. I've been hospitalized for depression. I had a complete nervous breakdown in 2009 and spent 6 weeks in the Priory. But no, I don't have depression. I should just pull myself together. Other people have depression. Depression is a real thing. It's to do with serotonin and dopamine, but I don't have it. I'm just an arsehole, and I should just pull my socks up and get on with it. Eddie Izzard used to do this bit about, I should just pull my socks up. Oh, that's all right then. Pull my socks up and everything. If I pull my socks all the way up over the table and back down again. But no, when I was in the Priory, you do a lot of group therapy. So actually they have 2 tiers to it. So there's like one building, which is like introductory group therapy, and then when you get good at that, you can go over to the other building and you're allowed to do the art therapy and the drama therapy and all this sort of stuff. And I would sit in group therapy and I would feel like an imposter in group therapy because the other people who were there had actual reasons to be depressed. Yeah, they'd actually gone through shit. And the stuff that I had gone through was nothing by comparison. And so I wouldn't talk in group. I was stuck in the sort of primary school group therapy for 3 weeks. And they're kind of like, why are you not joining in with the group therapy? And I'm like, because other people's problems are more important than mine. So yeah, that was fun. I'm not even a real boy. So yeah, all the other boys at school and everything, and the dads when I go to sort of school events from my kids' schools and everything, they like football and beer and stuff like that. I never liked football. Or soccer, just to piss off people who do like the soccer. I don't like any kind of sports, but I quite like watching Formula One because the cars are shiny and pretty and sometimes they explode. And who doesn't like an exploding car? It's never the right driver, but never mind. But yes. And so, and I kind of went through my whole life going, I would be going to these school things, and the dads would all be there talking about whatever they were talking about and their jobs in finance and whatever else. And I would just sort of stand around like this for a bit, and then I would go and talk to the mums. And so, yes. Not a real boy. Yes, I did just come out, because if you can't come out in front of 100 people at a tech conference and something that's also being live streamed on YouTube, then when the fuck can you? Don't know what I just came out as, non-binary something, but yes, definitely not a boy. And it feels so much better to actually kind of admit that and move on with it. And then, of course, nobody likes me. People just pretend to like me. People say, oh, you should come with us to this thing. Come and there's a bunch of us going to Leprous up at the Kentish Town Forum because people have asked me to go. People say, oh, you're coming? And I go, yes, I'm coming. And then I'm up in my room going, I'm not going to go because nobody actually likes me. And then 3 people will phone me or call me through WhatsApp or Signal or whatever and go, where the fuck are you? We're all down here. And we can't go because you're not here. And I'm kind of like, you're really pushing this pretending to like me thing a bit far at this point. I've been seeing the same therapist for like 10, 12 years now. Finally, recently, got to this point. This was after lockdown. Finally got to the point where it's kind of like maybe, just maybe, the reason that people are inviting me to go and do things with them, and that when they see me sitting in a conference expo, they come over and they talk to me. Maybe they do actually like me. Maybe they think their lives are better because I'm in it. It's a possibility, but I'm kind of internalizing it. I'm kind of getting there, but it is a struggle, and yeah. But yeah, it is. And this is what I'm doing in my... They don't really want me there. They're just inviting me to be nice. Why you would be nice to somebody you don't like, I don't know. But yeah, so I have this Batman in my head that just goes every time I think that. Also, I don't have imposter syndrome. None of this is actually imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be up here talking about imposter syndrome. These are not the confessions of an imposter. They're the ramblings of a broken idiot. You have imposter syndrome. I am 100% idiot. We are not the same. Okay. It's gone up and down. Bits of it have been light, bits of it have been stuff. But I would just like to summarize this with this talk that is not going to fill the complete hour, because as I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. But, pub. So, real talk. Tech skills, bringing this back to talking about tech skills, they're really nebulous and vague, and so this is why we end up getting asked, how many tennis balls could you fit in this room? Because it's difficult to test. It's like, if you're going to get a job as a bricklayer, they will give you some cement and some bricks and go, make a wall. And if you can do that and the wall is straight and level, then they go, yes, you can lay bricks, we'll give you a job laying bricks. Tech's not like that. We're not even sure what we're building. We definitely don't know how we're building it. We vaguely think that it might be better if we used that framework instead of that one. And so we don't really know what being good at it looks like. It's very difficult to pin that down. And so if you don't know what being good at something looks like, then how can you tell whether you are good or not? Which is, I think, why imposter syndrome is such a big thing in the tech industry in particular. I don't think you get heart surgeons halfway through a heart surgery going, I don't have the faintest idea what I'm doing. Is that the left ventricle or the atrium? No, the atrium's where we get coffee. So yes. Those of us who do actually know what we're doing, the ones of us who have imposter syndrome, the part of the problem is we know what we don't know. I know that there are huge gaps in my knowledge. I don't understand how LLMs work. I don't understand how neural nets work. That seems to be important at the moment. I do sort of know the .NET framework, although if you took IntelliSense away, I wouldn't. I used up my 100 free searches on Kaggy in half a day because that's how I code. I search for how to do the thing that I need to do. So we are very aware of the gaps in our knowledge, and it is impossible to know all of computers. You know like 1% of computers, and so you focus on the 99% of computers that you don't know and tell yourself you don't belong here. But actually, 1% is pretty good going. If you know 1%, then get out there and get paid more. We think everyone else, on the other hand, does know that because when you see sort of speakers up here and they're live coding and you're going, oh my God, he's so clever. No, he's practiced typing that and talking at the same time until he can do it blindfolded and drunk. And so, yeah, the fact that when you're sitting at your desk, you've got Google on that side and Copilot on that side, and you're sort of going, everyone is doing that, all right? It's not just you. I'm doing it. Scott Hanselman's doing it. David Fowler's doing it. Bloody Donald Knuth is probably doing it. There's a bonus confession. I bought the Art of Programming, and I used it as a monitor stand. I opened it and I just went, oh no, Christ. It requires a degree in mathematics just to be able to understand the abstracts. So yes. And then I did a tiny little bit of research about this. Evolution. So when you are living on the veldt or, in caves, and there are the animals that you hunt and eat, and then there are the animals that hunt and eat you, and you're sitting around your fire and there's a rustling in the bushes, if you sort of just go, it's probably fine, then and you're dead, and you don't get to breed, and you're out of the gene pool. And so evolution, psychology evolution, has selected for paranoia because paranoia keeps you alive. And yet now we're in this world that is mostly quite safe. I mean, don't go to bits of it, obviously, but mostly it's quite safe, and it's getting safer and safer because we've got zebra crossings and railings to stop you wandering out into the street, which is a whole other thing. There's a talk. That's probably a PubConf talk more than a tech talk. But yes, and so evolution has selected for paranoia, and so we're all paranoid, and we've got nothing to be paranoid about, and so we start inventing things, and I don't belong here, I'm a fraud, and everybody else is much better than me is a wonderful thing for your paranoia to alight on. But the key thing that I want you to take away from this is that imposters don't get imposter syndrome, okay? Imposters, the actual people who don't know anything, haven't got the faintest idea, they are the ones who think they're geniuses, very stable geniuses with the best words. Because this is the other thing. And when you find out about imposter syndrome, then inevitably the Dunning-Kruger effect will come up. But if you have proper imposter syndrome, like I don't, then you'll just go, oh, well, clearly It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, and if I do think that I know what I know, and I do think that I'm clever and I can do things and I'm valuable and everything else, that's just the Dunning-Kruger effect, because I'm at the peak of Mount Stupid, and I haven't even fallen into the valley of despair. But yes, so the people, Liz Truss is probably the best example of this, because she's still out there going, no, it wasn't my fault. It was, Kwasi did what I told him to do, and obviously he should have known that he shouldn't, because he was the economics expert, but I am going to go and join the Republican Party and see if I can be president of the United States, or anyway, whatever. Better that than hanging around here. But yes, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is essentially, it's why when you see the blind auditions the first week of X Factor and they are putting up people who are tone deaf but firmly believe that they are the next Adele, which we really shouldn't do. That's not actually much better than going to see the mental patients at Bedlam in the 19th century. So yes, so here is the truth. You are smart. You came to a tech conference to learn things so that you could get better at doing your jobs. You have absorbed an insane amount of information over the last 3 days. You are smart. You do know what you're doing. You are qualified to do this job. You are valid. You are absolutely entitled to be here. You are entitled to be part of this amazing community that we are all part of. You belong here, okay? We all belong here. Even I belong here, probably. You are loved. Not by everybody, but there are people in the world who love you and care for you and want you to be happy and love you because you make them happy, okay? This is the truth. I can't finish like that. Thank you very much, London. I'm sorry that got a bit heavy in places. I just want to say a couple more things. Please just appreciate everybody who has worked incredibly hard to bring this conference together, and all of the catering staff, the venue staff, the sound guys, the video guys, all of the speakers, all of the attendees. Just everything, a lot of stuff has to come together to make one of these conferences be the awesome thing that it is. So huge round of applause for everybody, and I will see you next time. Take care.